Scott, we promised you pre-show meeting we weren't going to make you settle the LeBron versus Jordan debate because I'm sure you've been asked this a lot. But you're in a very select group. You won 3 titles with Jordan, so I know obviously you that's a much deeper experience. You were on his team for a long time. And you played 1 year with LeBron, right? I want to say
he was in his second year in Cleveland, 04-05. So wasn't quite into his prime yet. Already doing big things, but not in his prime.
Yeah. So I'm not. I mean, if you have strong feelings one way or the other of who was better, then by all means lay them on me. But I'm almost more interested in just how they are competitively, how they get ready for game, how they carry themselves during games, whatever. You're talking about the 2 best players in NBA history. Are they, or certainly, LeBron's right up there. Did you see a lot of similarities between them? Like, could you just almost kind of tell, okay, this guy's, because LeBron came in with more hype than Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Probably
way more hype. Obviously, number 1 pick, biggest thing since, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar probably to enter the NBA. I mean, remember, Michael wasn't even the first draft pick in that class. I think he went 3rd to Chicago. But LeBron was I guess for all my 15 years in the league, and that maybe is my 15th and last when I played with him, with all the superstars that I had played with, Nash, Nowitzki, Allen Iverson, I'm talking about Tony Kukoc, all the Hall of Famers that I had played with since the time that I had played with with Michael. LeBron was the guy that was closest and showing me from day one in training camp that this kid's got that special it factor that you saw in Michael Jordan. So that was quite amazing to me. And he was still 19 years old at that time. I remember early in training camp and taking a charge as he drove down the lane thinking, oh no, if we both went to the ground, I hope I didn't, just injured the franchise player. And he popped right up and jogged down the floor. And I had those stars flash into my eyes. All my thoughts quickly changed to, I hope he didn't hurt me at 36 years old. Forget about the 19-year-old.
Scott is not small. What are you, 6'10"?
6'10". I was probably about 265. I was a little chubby going into training camp my last year in the league. And this kid was probably 245, 250, solid as marble. So, I took the brunt of that collision. But the thing that I go back to time and time again to answer this debate on who's better, Michael or LeBron, the thing I will say, they're both competitors and fiercely competitive and work on their bodies, always trying to improve the game. The difference to me is Michael had a killer instinct that LeBron just does not have to the level in which Michael has. He wanted to go out there on a nightly basis, and whatever the star was on that squad that we faced up against, he wanted that guy to know when he drove home away from the arena, they had no chance of ever beating him. He wouldn't even dream in his sleep that he could beat Michael Jordan. That's how badly he wanted to embarrass him in front of his friends, his family, and the fans in that arena where you're at. And LeBron just wants to win. He doesn't have that extra gear of robbing another superstar, maybe even a potential Hall of Famer, ability to take that confidence away from him that he could ever beat him.
Yeah.
And I saw that time and time again, whatever series we were in, whether it was, against the Knicks and Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley here with the Phoenix Suns. He wanted those guys to know that they could never beat him, and that's one of the reasons that gave him an advantage in why he was so successful in every NBA Finals that he was ever in.
That cut from The Last Dance that became, a meme and a GIF and everything, where he's like, "Oh, and I took that personally." It sounds like he was just that way all the time. That just happened to be the one cut that made that documentary, basically.
Yeah, I not to talk about my book Through the Fire, but I do write a little bit about what his competitive level was like, and I played with the dude prior to him winning a championship. What the competitive level it was that he placed on himself and the teammates, and even to the coaching staff to a degree to be ready to prepare and to play every time that you stepped on that floor, in every drill that you did, locked in the film sessions, in the weight room, the conditioning. That was a different level cat than they had in The Last Dance, where he was letting Dennis Rodman run off to Vegas with Carmen Electra.
Yeah.
That dude that I played with prior to winning the championship would not have tolerated that whatsoever. I think after he had a couple rings on his fingers, he thought, well, maybe this guy's got opportunity for me to get back to the NBA Finals. Let's see how this plays out. But the dude that I played with was a smoldering beast in everything that we did.
That's an interesting thought, because everybody now does just look at Jordan and they're like, oh, yeah, 6 rings, and he probably could have had a couple more if he had played those 2 years in the middle. But
100%.
That perspective that you just gave of, like, imagine Michael Jordan when he didn't have a ring yet, and he feels like whoever took it from him. Like, I can't even imagine what that guy would have been like.
It was the hardest thing that I ever did in my entire life was to survive that training camp. And I played with a chip on my shoulder because I was undrafted, but the amount of work that we put in to prepare for that season to try to get past the Pistons, to have the best record in the Eastern Conference, is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
And that was, I know it wasn't all Jordan, but that was mostly driven by Jordan.
In my opinion, it was all
really?
Jordan. Scottie Pippen wasn't the player that he became. John Paxson, some of those other guys were leaders off the court, but it was Michael Jordan on the court and that fueled and drove that team.